I'm full of swatches, guys. We got swatches galore. Okay. Trying to determine, am I going to go on a strict no buy and not buy the new Mothership palette? Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today, I am going to be sharing with you in anticipation of Pat McGrath's new Mothership that is soon to be released. We usually get a new Mothership in the month of July, and at the time that I'm filming this, it's currently July. So I expect that a new Pat McGrath palette will be coming out any day now, and I'm kind of excited about it. But honestly, I'm not exactly sure if I'm going to purchase it. So going through my eyeshadow palettes today will help me decide whether or not I'm going to buy the new Pat McGrath Mothership palette. So let's go ahead and get into it. I'm sorry if you see me leaning a little bit to this side, or if like you see me kind of go back and forth. I have my leg propped up over here on a bench because I broke my foot. Anyway, okay. I've been going back and forth debating as to whether or not I'm going to be buying the new Pat McGrath Mothership 12. Is that right? Yeah, it's Mothership 12. And at first I was like, no matter what it is that comes out, I'm not going to get it because I haven't got enough use out of my palettes and they're very, very expensive. And then I started thinking about it further and was like, no, yeah, I'm definitely going to be getting the new Mothership because how could I not get the new Mothership? I mean, are you kidding me? I've bought the new Mothership every summer that it's released ever since I found out about Pat McGrath. And that's really only been like the last few years, maybe like 3-4 years. So everything else that came out before that, I had to pick up, you know, well after its prime. Anyways, none of this matters. Okay, so I've been going back and forth as to whether or not I'm going to buy this new Mothership, and I have no idea. Like, we haven't even gotten a sneak peek yet about it. So I've just really been in anticipation for several months trying to determine, am I going to go on a strict no buy and not buy the new Mothership palette until maybe it goes on clearance sometime well off in the future? Or am I going to do a low buy? Because I've been, you know, going back and forth throughout the year, this year, 2024, as to whether it's a low buy, whether it's a no buy. And I've been kind of just like walking the line between the two, which technically speaking means it's not a no buy, but let me live. Okay. Anyway. And so it's not that serious. It's all in fun. So it's fine. Anyhow, so I've been going back and forth as to whether or not I'm going to buy this new Mothership. And some of the things that has me thinking no is, well, the cost. You know, the economy has gotten really, really bad lately, like worse and worse, and it's not looking like it's going to get any better. And so I've just really been more mindful and more diligent about the money that I spend because it just seems so ridiculous to be spending money on those things. But then on the other hand, you can't take it with you to the grave, and life is short by the palette. You know what I mean? It makes me happy. I'm not hurting anyone. I want to play with some makeup. Let me laugh, you know? So it's like literally I go back and forth. No, don't buy the palette. Yes, I'm going to buy the palette. And so anyways, today I'm going to go through my entire Mothership collection and determine whether or not I would repurchase this palette today, knowing what I know, not only about the brand and the trajectory that it's gone on, as well as knowing what I know about how much or how little I use a particular palette or all of my palettes. And, you know, just with my newfound perspective towards decluttering my life as opposed to collecting everything, you know, so all of those things have really brought me to a point where I kind of don't want to buy the palette. Like I feel like essentially I don't want to buy the palette, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to actually do it because I also do want to have the palette. I'm just not sure if I want to have the new Mothership enough to add it to this big stack that I have here and go from having 11 motherships to having 12, because it just seems, well, it doesn't just seem, it actually is. It's just excessive, okay? It's just a bit excessive, if I do say so myself, okay? Now, if you enjoy collecting makeup, don't let anybody tell you, you know, not to do it. Unless, of course, it's your finances telling you not to do it. Then, you know, don't go getting yourself into hock for anything, okay? That's not something that I do, and not something that I would advise doing, okay? So if you don't have the money to blow, don't blow it, all right? And essentially, if you want to be smart with your money, don't blow it. So there's the bottom line right there. And sometimes I teeter back and forth as to whether or not I want to be smart with my money. So yeah, anyways, let's go ahead and start going through all of these beautiful Mothership palettes. I'm going to just briefly, we're going to look at each palette, and I'm going to briefly tell you whether or not I feel like I would repurchase this palette today at full price. Because, you know, I mean, yeah, we tend to wait for sales, but sometimes I do purchase them at full price. And, you know, when we think about the purchase price of something, we think of it at full price. So I'm going to be going through these, thinking about them at full price. Would I be willing to repurchase this palette again today? If that sounds like something you're interested in, be sure to give this video a like. Make sure you hit the like button. It really does help my small channel out so much. And make sure you're subscribed to my channel. And all that being said, let's go ahead and dive into my Pat McGrath Mothership collection. Briefly, I'm going to try to keep this like short and sweet and snappy. Okay, all right. I'm going to start off here with, I do have them labeled, but without my reading glasses on, I really can't see what it says. So, you know, oh, okay, this is the one that I used today. This is actually the palette that I am wearing today, and I did film this look. If you're curious and you'd like to see the video where I created this eye look with the Pat McGrath Subliminal eyeshadow palette, then be sure to check up here in the eye or down below in the description box. I'll have the video linked there for your convenience if you'd like to see how I created this look. But I have to say, this particular Mothership eyeshadow palette here, I used for a super, super long time before, wait, is this one the one? No, it was Divine Rose. Okay, never mind, hold on. This eyeshadow palette here was actually the one that I didn't want to get because it really just looked so boring to me. I mean, yes, it had this one bright blue, which really called to me. But I didn't know that these other shades kind of leaned blue a little bit at the time when I was considering, you know, whether or not I wanted this palette. And so it just looked so boring to me, but I ended up buying it and on sale in like a 3-pack. And it turns out that these colors, it turns out that these two shades here are actually really beautiful and spectacular. And I do have actually all 3 of these on my eye today. But I do really, really enjoy this part of the palette. Like if you cut out the Blitz shades, I still really, really love this neutral palette right there. And because of that, because I do like to use my Pat McGrath palettes, usually mostly for like matte and satin looks, it's not very often that I'll go all out and put actual glitter on my eyes, especially if I have to wear the look for a long time because I'm afraid of like allergies. I want to rub my eyes or anything like that. I don't want to get glitter in my eyes. It's bad enough to get makeup in your eyes. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, okay. So because I don't use the Blitz shades that often, and these colors here are so beautiful and like my go-to kinds of colors, I would absolutely repurchase the Subliminal Mothership at full price, knowing what I know today, even though that's not how I felt originally. And I held out for a really good sale because I did not think that this palette was going to be worth that much to me. I do really, really enjoy this Mothership. Next, we've got the Bronze Seduction Mothership palette. So this is what the palette looks like. Here's what my palette looks like. I have gotten some use out of several of these shades. Have I done this palette in a No Pan Left Behind style yet? Yeah, I've used every single shade in this palette. So I have tested this palette out, No Pan Left Behind style, but I didn't intentionally do that at the time. So I wasn't like deliberately taking notes for my No Pan Left Behind updates, but I have used every shade in this palette. I would say that as much as I absolutely love this palette, this is like one of my top ranking motherships. I really like, I mean, this is pretty when I've used it, but I don't really gravitate towards this red shade here. I do really enjoy these two Blitz shades here. This one here, let me just swatch this for you. Oh my gosh. Okay. Can you just see? I barely touched it. You can't even see anything. Oh yeah, you can. Oh, look at that. Oh my God. I literally barely touched it. You saw I barely touched it. Look at that. Okay. That shade there is just so glorious that it really like between that one Blitz up there and this matte down here, it really makes the palette like above and beyond for me. I really love this purpley deep shade, and my particular matte, because it is a newer palette, it is not patchy like the original ones were several years back when I watched people do looks with this palette. And that being said, this portion of the palette here, the neutral section, is really beautiful for easy go-to looks. And I really enjoy when Pat McGrath includes her satin shades because they really give a lot of a beautiful metallic-y effect, but you don't get any like glitter fallout, and I really love that. But I would definitely repurchase this Mothership again, specifically because of that shade there, look at that, okay, and this particular matte here. But I do enjoy the whole palette. I feel like this beautiful, gorgeous, like rosy, glittery shade there is just so beautiful on the eyes. I feel like it would be fun to try to do a look with those two. So I think I'm going to line this up in my palette rotation in the near future and see if I can just explore some different kinds of looks that I haven't done yet with this palette and get some more use out of it. But yeah, I would totally repurchase the Bronze Seduction as one of my top recommended Mothership palettes. Okay, I'm going to not go on that long for every single one of them unless you want me to. Okay, next we've got, okay, the Utopian Dream. This one is one that I actually was looking forward to at release because this was when, like, before this palette came out, before we even heard anything about it, that was when I found out about Pat McGrath. And so I actually didn't even know about Pat McGrath when her 9th palette released. Wait, this is number 9. When her 8th palette released. Oh God, I just ran out of something. My battery, hold on. I apologize if the screen's a little crooked now because it's kind of pulling that way now. Okay. Oh, let me cock my foot back up here. Okay, I apologize for that brief interlude. I had to plug the battery in. Anyways, back to what I was saying. Okay, so I actually didn't know about Pat McGrath when the previous Mothership, the one before this, number 8, came out. I don't even know which one is 8, but I know that this one is 9 because I had found out about Pat McGrath before this palette released. And that was actually when I learned that we get new Motherships in July. So I was really looking forward to this one, the Utopian Dream. And I really expected to get a lot more use out of it. I have to say, this right here, this little corner that gives you that like, oh God, gorgeous flash of purple. I'm going to do this the whole time, aren't I? Okay, let's see. Hold on. Let me do the other one too. Right next to it. Oh my God, look at that, okay? If you look at those shades, like they're really pretty. Ignore the green one on the far edge, but the two middle ones, like on the middle of my hand, I just when she was advertising this mothership, she made this palette come off like it was going to be hella purple. Okay. I didn't know at that time. Granted, I was brand new to the brand pretty much, and this was my fault for being so naive, but I did not know at the time that she over edits her photography and that her photos don't actually depict what the palette's really going to look like. And so I really expected this palette to be a lot more purple. That being said, if you take away the Blitz section of this palette, you basically have like the Risque Rose quad here. Is it the Risque Rose or the Divine Rose? Anyway, I basically have this already in a quad, and I personally don't like this shade of pink on me. This is my least favorite shade. This is the only shade of pink that I dislike in the entire range of pink shades. This is like that salmon-y shade of pink. I don't like it in any form, whether it's a pastel version or a super deep. I don't like that salmon-y pink color. So because of that, and it's basically the only matte that you have besides this super, super light pink and this brown that comes in, you know, like a pinky brown that comes in basically all her other palettes in some shade or variation of brown, you know, with some other undertone underneath it. I just feel like I don't really enjoy this Mothership as much as I expected to, and I have not used it anywhere near the number of times that I've used my other Motherships, and I just don't really get called towards it either. I'm not really drawn to these neutrals as like a go-to. So yeah, no, I would not. I would not repurchase this palette again. I would absolutely buy this particular Blitz shade here in a single if I could do that somehow, but like, I basically bought this whole palette for that one shade is how I feel about life. And that one shade isn't even all that spectacular. It's not even all that purple on the eye because it's got such a pink shift that it's hard to see the purple in my opinion, at least on my skin tone. I do have a friend that loves this palette to death, and she's got pans and a lot of her shades, and she uses the heck out of that shade, and it looks so beautiful on her. It looks so purple every time I see it. Maybe that's how other people see my looks when I create with this, but when I look in the mirror, I don't see the purple that much on myself, and so I feel let down, and because of that, I would not repurchase this Mothership, especially not at full price again. Yeah, I didn't even know at that time that she gives 10% discounts, you know. So I did. I paid straight up full price for that one. Here's one that I paid only $87 for, which does make me enjoy this palette a lot more. If I had paid full price for this palette, I feel like I would have a really, really negative outlook on this particular one. And I think that is just because in my mind, I'm kind of like closed off to this orange shade here. And I feel like this very red matte is kind of, I mean, it's a fun matte to have, but it's not like one of my go-to types of shades. And I don't really like the way that it looks unless it's super soft blown out. So I can't use that red shade as a deepening up matte without my look getting too warm in my opinion. I do have a preference for cooler tones, so that might also be why, but I really do enjoy this portion of the palette, and I appreciate that this purple is a very cool tone purple. I love me a cool tone purple much more than a warmer tone purple, like that kind of orchid shade purple. That's not really my favorite. I mean, it's very common, so I do tend to like wear it and use it a lot, but I prefer more of a cool tone blue based type of a purple. And so I do like this palette, and I love this gorgeous olive green shade. You can get so much variety out of This one has my loosest screw, so it closes really easily. You can get so much variety out of this palette. So because of that, I do have a keen appreciation for it. I just don't get all like warm and fuzzy and excited about it when I think about it. I end up usually very happy with the looks that I created after I've used it, and I have loving sensations towards the palette at that time. But the feeling, or I don't know, the feeling that I get when I look at it, it just isn't love at first sight. And so that just makes me not as excited about it. But yeah, and so because of that, I have to say, at first I thought I was going to say, yes, I would repurchase it, but no. After everything that I just said and kind of like realized how I really feel about this palette, I don't think I would my voice just cracked, excuse me. I don't think I would repurchase this palette at full price, knowing what I know about it now. But I do really love it, and I think it's beautiful, and I feel bad for saying that, and I'm glad that I have it in my collection. But that's the truth. That's how I feel. Okay. Up next is, I love this palette. I feel like this is not everyone's, but a lot of people's least favorite mothership. And for me, I really, really love this palette. This is actually my most reached for mothership, surprisingly enough. It used to be Divine Rose 1, but ever since I got this one, I reach for this one a lot more. And the reason being is because, well, one, you can do so many different looks out of this palette. Like, I literally instantly see, just immediately off the top of my head, like 10 different looks that I could create with this palette. And that's not even with me like sitting down trying to come up with something really creative. That's just like that's not even me trying to come up with something creative. That's just me like immediately looking at it, and I'm just like overwhelmed, like bam, 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 all these color combinations that I want to do. And I'm like, oh, which one should I pick? And for such a small palette like this, I mean, it literally has 10 pans, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Yeah, it literally has 10 pans. For such a small palette like this to give me that much excitement in my mind and like so many ideas just at first glance, really puts this palette up super high on my loves list. And I would absolutely repurchase this palette full price. However, I only paid, I believe I paid like $39 for this palette because I got it when Pat McGrath had her freak sale. It was some sort of a crazy freak glitch sale on her website. And it was just like some crazy glitch. And you could put this palette and other palettes like Motherships in your cart for like $40. And yeah, that's how I got this one and the Subliminal. So I really, really love that. But yeah, that day wasn't a full win for me because I had one of my 3 orders canceled. And because I was so scared about that being a glitch, I placed the orders like individually really quickly because I was like, I don't want to take the chance of just one order not going through, you know? So I was like, if I put a bunch of orders in and put everything individually, maybe I'll get the chance of something sneaking through and her not canceling the order. Because I had heard that she canceled orders before when there were other glitches. Anyways, I digress. I would absolutely pay full price for this palette, knowing what I know about it today and knowing how much I reach for it and how much I enjoy this palette and how happy it makes me, especially the top reason why I love this palette so much, aside from the colorful variety that you can get out of here, is because I don't get any fallout with this palette. I don't get any glitter, any like glitter sparkles flaking about. I don't have to use glitter glue. I don't have to use my fingers. I can literally just go in with a beautiful natural haired brush and get the amazing, beautiful colors that you see here. And the looks come out fun, and I never have to worry about them not wearing well for hours and possibly harming my eyeballs, which I find that a big plus. I would definitely repurchase this one. Okay. Next we've got the very controversial Mothership number 11. Oh, did I tell you what that was? Hold on. This is the Decadence Mothership. So this is Mothership number 11. This was the most recently released Mothership, which was 11 months ago now, and we are coming up due for a new one. I'm super excited to find out what it's going to look like. A lot of people did not like this palette, and I have to say, when I first saw the Color Story released, my immediate thought was like, girl, more pinks? But then I was like, okay, now hold on now. It's an entirely pink palette from Pat McGrath. If anybody's going to do pink really, really well, it's going to be Pat McGrath. And so I decided I was going to pick this palette up. Specifically, I got it for my channel instead of waiting, like, that's why I picked it up new, instead of waiting for it to go, it's hard to hold these open. Instead of waiting for it to go on clearance or on sale in the future, I specifically picked it up for my channel brand new because I thought it would just be fun to play with it for, you know, a new release on my channel and just see if it could bring anybody to my channel, which most of the time people don't watch my Pat McGrath videos. And it's probably because I'm like such a casual woman. Like Pat McGrath is super dressy and like luxe feeling. And although I can hang with them luxe honeys, I have more of like a casual salt of the earth look and vibe, and so maybe for some that just doesn't transcend to Pat McGrath, but anyways, it does for me, and I'm thankful that I can play with Pat McGrath because I never thought that I would even be able to have 11 Pat McGrath motherships in my life, to be quite frank. So I'm really thankful, and I don't take any of this for granted. I just want you to know that. Okay, back to this palette. So when I did pick up this palette and it was on its way to me, I was a little disappointed and hopeful that I would like it. But literally the second I started creating looks with it, I fell in love. And let me tell you, I would absolutely purchase this palette again, full price. Yes, ma'am. Yes, girl. Yes, absolutely. This one is a winner in my book. I love this palette so much, and I've actually reached for it a whole lot. It is my, in recent, like here in this last year or so, it is my second most reached for Pat McGrath Mothership. So yeah, I really like this one a lot. And I think even though all the mattes in here are pink leaning, and I was complaining about that in a previous palette, it's the undertones of these pinks that I appreciate so much. They're really like bold and berry and cool tone. And I really, really love how this palette looks on my eyes. It's so beautiful. I would definitely repurchase it. Okay, next. Oh, okay. I did purchase this one brand new too. This is the Moonlit Seduction, Pat McGrath's, the Mothership. This is the Moonlit Seduction Mothership number 10, and I did purchase this palette brand new at launch. This was the second Mothership, obviously, that I knew about, since number 9 was the first one that I knew about before release, and so that I was able to pick them up new. So this was my second release purchased. What? Am I making sense? You get what I'm saying. Let's move on. Okay, so yeah, I did pay pretty much full price for this one, but by this time, I had found out that you could get 10% off at the launch, so I did get at least 10% off on this one, thankfully. And if I buy the new one here this month, I'm going to, like, whenever we start to get some sneak peeks about it, then yeah, I'll buy it with the 10% off then too if I buy it. But anyways, I didn't think that I was going to love this palette as much as I do. I do really enjoy this palette, and I feel like even though you don't like immediately look at it and think, oh, tons of range, like you would say the Decadence palette or whatever, this palette really does have a lot of range. My very first video that I did with it, I did 3 completely different looks that I never would have guessed came from the same palette. So I thought that was pretty interesting and fun. And I have reached for this palette since, especially like to create smoky eyes, like when I'm going to go out at night. I haven't used it quite as much as I have the Moonlit Seduction. And I think that's more because that one is more in my mind. I mean, you can wear your makeup however you want to any time of day, year round, okay? But for me, in my mind, the way I think of the Moonlit Seduction, it's more of like a daytime palette. It's just more like daytime appropriate. And although you can make daytime looks with this too, and you, like I said, you can wear your makeup whenever you want. In my mind, this is more of like a going out evening time, smoky, sultry kind of rock chick look. And the other one is more like the Moonlit Seduction is more of like an everyday beautiful look. Oh, did I tell you? Would I repurchase this full price knowing what I know about it now? Yes. Yes, I would. I would repurchase the Moonlit Seduction full price knowing what I know now. All right. Here is the Divine Rose Mothership. This is Divine Rose 1. I don't know. I think this might have been like maybe Mothership 4 or something like that. I'm not 100% sure because again, this was all way before I knew about Pat McGrath. Anyways, when I first bought my Motherships, I got like, if I remember correctly, I got like 4 of them at one time, maybe even 5, something like that. Anyway, the Divine Rose one was one of my original Motherships to buy. And at first, it was the only Mothership that I used. And for over a year that I had it, maybe even over 2 years actually, I only used these 6 neutral shades when I used this palette. I only, like in the last year or so, dipped into the Divine Rose Blitz shades. But that being said, I love these beautiful, soft, cool tone neutrals. Let me show you if you can see the dips that I've got going and some of those some of those mattes. You can see that I really got a lot of use out of this palette. And I do really love the looks that come out of it. I think it's super, super beautiful. And I absolutely would repurchase this in a heartbeat. I love it. Love this palette. Okay. Up next, we've got, this was my most recently purchased Mothership. This was the last one that I was waiting to come back in stock to complete my collection. And I was also very hesitant about it because as beautiful as this green shade looks, I've only been into green shades for like maybe a year and a half now, maybe even as far as 2. But because of that, this was not one of the palettes that was like living rent-free in my mind, tossing about, wondering, am I going to buy it? Should I buy it? Should I not? And aside from that, it was also sold out for years, years. As soon as it came back in stock, and it was the last one that I needed to complete my collection, fortunately, I decided, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and buy it. I did pay full price for this one, and I have used every single shade in the palette. So all that being said, let me take a good look and consider it briefly. Okay. Admittedly, I've only played with this palette a couple of times. I need to, again, it's my newest Mothership. I don't think I've had this a year yet even, okay? Yeah, I haven't. So, granted, I should have used it still more because that's a long time, but I have a massive eyeshadow palette collection and I don't wear makeup every single day. So anyways, knowing what I know now, I would not repurchase this Mothership, sadly. And mainly that's because if you can see here, I'm going to swatch it for you. Okay. You can see even on my finger, it doesn't look bright green. It's kind of like a black green. And that's what I don't like about it. See, like at one angle, it's green, but straight on, it's really dark. And so when you're looking at someone in their face, this is what they see. You have to turn to the side in some light to get some beautiful bright green. And I feel like that's super deceiving because when you look in the palette directly, the shade comes up looking bright green. You have to turn it to the side to get that black shift. And so the way it translates on the eye is completely opposite of that. It shows up mainly with the black shift. And then in order to get any green, you've got to like walk around like that in the light for anybody to see anything. And these other shades are just kind of like, they're okay, but like, I feel like that literally looks like the same shade as in Divine Rose. I mean, the number one, maybe I'm wrong about that or whatever, but like we've got other golds in the Pat McGrath palettes, and I've got this one does lean a little bit more of a green hue. So maybe it's more like the Moonlit Seduction one. But anyways, I just don't find the mattes in this one and the Blitz shades to be unique enough or enjoyable enough, specifically this green when I say that, in order for me to want to repurchase this palette again. Now, I do plan on using this palette some more. Maybe my feelings will develop further and I'll change my opinions at that time, but as it stands now, I absolutely would not repurchase this one. And every time one of my friends who doesn't have this palette is like, hey, what do you think about the Sublime? Oh yeah, I didn't even tell you. This is the Sublime Mothership. And they're like, what do you think of the Sublime Mothership? And I'm just like, if you're looking at that palette for the green, you might be disappointed. It's like, but if you like all the other shades in it, or you don't mind a blackened base green, then you'll enjoy that palette. So I just try to be really upfront with them because I don't want them to feel like they've wasted their money on it. And I want them to know what to expect, so that if they get the palette still, they'll be excited instead of disappointed the way I kind of was. But yeah, I would not repurchase this one again. But I am happy to have it in my collection, especially because it rounds out the complete Mothership collection for me. Okay, I'm full of swatches, guys. I got swatches galore. Okay, just two more Motherships, that's it. Okay, here we go. This one is, the other one that I got during that glitch sale. I got this palette for $47. And I have to say, I was never going to buy this palette at full price, even though it looks so fun. I feel like especially because it looks so fun. And the reason for that being, I had no idea what I was going to do with all of these sparkly, colorful shades. I was just very intimidated by this color story, to be quite frank. And I already have these 3 shades down here in her other palettes. So I was very, very hesitant to get this. But when I was able to get this during that glitch sale, and it was only like $47, I was like, okay, for that, I'm willing to check it out and take a chance. Boy, let me tell you, I am so glad she ended up sending me this palette and didn't cancel that order, because I wouldn't have bought this palette any other way. Then I never would have found out what an incredible color story this is. This is my third, this is my third most reached for Mothership, like in the last year or so, out of all of the palettes. I really enjoy this one a lot. I have a lot of fun reaching for this, more so like with just 1 or 2 Blitz shades, like the mattes, and then 1 or 2 of the shades, not really building up like 6 different shades the way I normally do with other eyeshadow palettes. But I have really enjoyed all of the looks that I get from it, and I especially love this shade there, and that one too, and that one. Anyway, yeah, I would totally repurchase this palette. Knowing what I know about it now, I would be willing to pay full price for this palette. And I'm so glad that I have this in my collection. If I hadn't gotten it during that glitch sale, but somehow I was embedded with my opinions about it already, like not based off of other people's uses, but knowing how I was going to feel about it, using it, if I already knew that somehow when I didn't have it and I couldn't get it in the glitch sale, then I would be like, okay, I'll pay full price and check it out. So yeah, I am so glad to have this one, and I would absolutely repurchase this one. Okay, so if you've been keeping up, you know that means this is Divine Rose 2. And yeah, there she is. This palette here I bought in a bundle with Divine Rose 1, so that was part of it. And I have to say, I thought that I would really like this palette a lot because I love hot pink, but I realized I don't like hot pink as eyeshadow anymore. I did when I first started wearing makeup when I was 14. I wore makeup before that, but that was when I first started wearing eyeshadow. When I was 14, I had a hot pink Lancome single eyeshadow like this, and I panned it because this was what I would wear all over my lid every single day to high school. And it was one of these and a purple shade too. And they were both satins, and that was the eyeshadow that I wore. Bright pink or a like a warm purple. And so like kind of like an orchid purple. And yeah, I don't know, maybe that's what kind of makes me not like this eyeshadow palette as much as I thought that I would. Maybe it just makes me feel like what I looked like. Okay, when I look at myself in the mirror wearing this super pink shade, which is like, you know, the most fun color in this palette, if you ask me, aside from the Blitz, I just kind of feel like I'm looking at my 14-year-old self, like I hadn't changed enough in my preferences, and I just don't like that I feel like I've just already done the hot pink look is my problem. And so because of that, I don't reach for this palette that much, and I don't really like this orangey matte there. So yeah, and honestly, there's still shades in here that I haven't even touched. I have not used this Blitz here or that one there. So there's still those two Blitz. I have not used these two shades still, and I have had this palette 4 years. Oh my gosh, that's ridiculous. Okay, I am officially rolling this palette into my No Pan Left Behind. I'm going to test this palette out, No Pan Left Behind style, so that I can like develop my thoughts more further, because there's like shades in here I haven't used. But with the information that I have about the palette now, and knowing how little I've used it and how I feel about the shades when I do wear this palette, I don't think that I would repurchase this palette. Yeah, that's how I feel about it now. We'll see if at the end of doing this No Pan Left Behind style, if I end up changing my mind about it. So look forward to the updates on that. But that's the last one in the entire Mothership collection as it stands now. So now let me go back and reconsider. Am I going to purchase number 12 at release? I feel like I had more yeses I would repurchase as opposed to nos I wouldn't repurchase. And so because of that, I feel like maybe as long as I like the color story a lot and I'm really drawn to it, and I like the mattes specifically, as long as I like the matte shades specifically, and I'm drawn to the Blitz shades if there's any, then yes, I do plan to buy the new Mothership palette at release. Yay! Okay. So now my mind is officially made up. That's where it stands. And it's good that I finally made up my mind, because like we'll be getting a sneak peek any day now. And I didn't want to not have my decision made before I see the palette, because it's really hard to make a sound decision when you're sitting there staring at that eye candy and your mouth is watering over it and you can't think clearly like that. You know what I mean? And I didn't want to put it on hold and make up my mind after the fact like a normal palette, because if I'm going to end up buying it, then I want to get it at launch so that it can help my channel and get a few views maybe. Anyways, yeah, so thank you so much for going through my Mothership collection with me and helping me determine whether or not I feel like it would be in my best interest to pick up the new Mothership palette at release. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please be sure to click the like button. It really does help my small channel out so much. Comment down below and let me know how you feel about any of these Motherships. If you own them, if you own all of them, or just one or a couple of them, let me know how you feel about whether or not you would repurchase yours. Okay, so yeah, like maybe let me know your favorite Mothership and let me know your least favorite Mothership. And that's even if you don't own them. Like if you're just like, you've got them maybe on a wish list, or maybe you don't even want them, but just let me know just by looking at them, if you don't own one, which Mothership would be your favorite, you think, and which one would be your least favorite. So yeah, I'm super curious to hear, and down below in the comments so that we can chit chat, and I look forward to talking with you there. But yeah, make sure you're subscribed to the channel before you go. Click the notification bell so you don't miss any of my uploads, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.